we will be reading from texts 59 and 60 of the 18th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. Right? Okay. First we will do the invocation. Anybody remember? What's the first word of the invocation? What? Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So where do we find that Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya? What? First canto? How about second canto? Also, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadasaja Atarat Tacha Itraseshu Vignasvara Tene Brahmaridaye. We won't do the whole, but that's the first verse of Bhagavatam. But we are reading from the Gita. Text 59. Yad Ahankaram Ashricha Na Yotsya Iti Manyase Mityaisa Vyavasayas Te Prakritis Tram Niyokshati Yadaham Karam Ashricha Na Yotsya Iti Manyase Mityaisa Vyavasyaste Prakritistram Niyokshati Yat Therefore Aham Karam False ego Ashrita Taking shelter Na Not Yotsya shall fight. Iti thus. Manyase think. Mitya esa this is all false. Vyavasaya te your determination. Prakriti material nature. Tvam you. Niyokshati. Niyokshati. Will engage you. Pay attention because there's going to be a test here. Translation of text 59. If you do not act according to my direction, think about that carefully. Krishna is telling us something. What's going to happen if you do not act according to my direction? And do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna was a military man and born of a nature of a Kshatriya. We can look at these, this is Arjuna's situation for him to fight, but for each of us it may be a different situation. But the idea is the same, even though the detail may be different. But due to false ego, he was fearing that by killing his teacher, grandfather, and friends, there would be sinful reactions. Actually, he was considering himself master of his actions, as if he were directing the good and the bad results of such work. He forgot that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present there, instructing him to fight. This is the forgetfulness of the conditioned soul. The Supreme Personality gives directions as to what is good and what is bad. One simply has to act in Krishna consciousness to attain the perfection of life. No one can ascertain his destiny as the Supreme Lord can. Therefore, the best course is to take direction from the Supreme Lord and act. One should... No one... I forget it. Otherwise, one should neglect the order of the personality of Godhead. Is that it? No one should neglect the order of the personality of Godhead, or the order of the spiritual master. Remember that, that'll be on the test. Who is the representative of God? One should act unhesitatingly to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That will keep him safe under all circumstances. Who wants to be safe? Only a couple of people, okay. I'll read the next verse. Svabhavajena konteya nibadasvena karmanaha kartumne hasiyad mohat karishasi avashopiyat. Svabhavayena, by one's own nature. Kunteya, O son of Kunti. Nibadaya, conditioned. Svena, by one's own. Karmana, activities. Kartum, to do. Na, not. Ihasi, like. Yat, that. Mohat, by illusion. Karshati, you will act. Avashaha, imperceptibly. Api, even. Tat, that. Translation. Under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction. But compelled by your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. If one refuses to act under the direction of the Supreme Lord, then he is compelled to act by the modes in which he is situated. Everyone is under the spell of a particular combination of the modes of nature and is acting in that way. But anyone who voluntarily engages himself under the direction of the Supreme Lord becomes glorious. What is ahamkara? False ego. So if there's a false ego, what does that mean? What does there also have to be then? What? No, that's what false ego is. But if there is a false ego, what does there also have to be? A real ego, yes. If there's false, something else must be there to be real. So what is the difference between false ego and real ego? Ego means our existence, right? So false would be what we are not, and real ego is what we are. So what is the difference?
False ego born in the concept.
Okay, and real ego?
Real ego, soul.
Is what?
Soul conception.
Soul conception, yes. Also what? That we are part and parcel of Krishna. That's the complete understanding. Let's see if you understood some of the other things here. So this indicates pretty strongly here by the beginning of this verse. He says, if you do not act according to my direction, then you will be engaged by this false ego, and you will have to follow your own nature anyway. So you see, Krishna is not judgmental in Bhagavad-Gita, but he starts with the philosophy of Sankhya, which means counting, more or less the cost to value ratio. He explains, if you do this, you get this result. Such as in the 12th chapter, he explains that if you surrender to him completely, you go back to him. If you can't do that and you practice the rules and regulations of bhakti-yoga, you develop a desire to attain him. If you can't do that, then you practice karma yoga, and it will eventually bring you to bhakti-yoga. So each thing he explains what happens when you surrender to him, you go back to him. He explains what happens when you act in the mode of passion. He explains each of them, not as you're bad if you do this and I'm going to punish you, but he just explains it as it is. Here is the action and reaction. So he makes it very clear in this that if you do not act according to my directions, will things turn out well? Will you actually have more freedom or less? You have less, because if you act according to Krishna's direction, then you can be free to serve Krishna with love. But if you don't act according to real ego, what do you act according to? False ego, which means we're attached to this body, right? And we take shelter there. We think, like, I have a couple of tulsi plants. If they take shelter in dirt, that is good, right? What if they take shelter on a rock? Or on the furniture here? It has to be a secure shelter. They take shelter in the dirt because in the dirt, water and other minerals can get into the roots and come up. If you put it on the table, the things can't get to the roots, and the roots are unprotected. So we're all looking for some kind of shelter. It's just like if you build a house. It should have a roof, yes? You can't say, well, I'll save money. No foundation, no roof. I just put walls, right? You just need a couple walls, yes? Or does it need the whole picture to be secure? Yes? You just build a couple walls? That's not enough? Just a couple walls? That's the major cocaine trafficker, Pablo Escobar. The Colombian government was after him. So he says, all right, I'll put myself in a prison and I'll build the prison. And they showed pictures of the walls of this prison in Colombia. And it had big, high, thick walls. But there was only walls on 3 sides. So does that stop him from walking out the 4th side? No matter how big they are on the other side, if it's not totally secure, then he's not locked away there. So because of that, he was able to get out of there and live happily ever after and do whatever he wanted, right? Is that what happened? Or did he get shot by the Colombian government? That must be what happened. So people think they're very secure in power. But as it's explaining here, like Krishna says, if you do not act according to my directions, then you're going to end up in all kinds of difficulty. So the obvious conclusion is here that I should find out what Krishna's directions are. It's just like if I want to go to Loy Bazaar or Delhi, I should get directions from someone who knows. And Krishna knows all of it. We know part of it, but it's the part we don't know that gets us in trouble. Just like that 3rd wall that couldn't keep Pablo Escobar in. People think they have their shelter all nicely arranged. But as Prabhupada explains in the introduction to the Gita, some of the important points why we need direction is there is a God, but it's not us, it's Krishna. And we come with a couple defects. We are small, Anu. We commit mistakes. We have a tendency to be illusioned. And we have a tendency to either cheat or be cheated. So if we're trying to figure out to go somewhere without the proper directions, if you don't have the proper directions, you won't get there. So Krishna is drilling this in very carefully to understand the proper directions. As Krishna had said in the last verse, not hearing me, you're lost, right? So we think, if I don't want to be lost, I should be trying to hear Krishna's instructions. I should understand them. I should understand what is good and bad based on the cost and value system that Krishna has explained in Bhagavad-Gita. We won't get very far by speculating. We may go the wrong direction. We may go round in circles. But if we follow Krishna's direction, we will get to the goal that we want to get to. And he is considering himself the master of his actions, as if he can regulate his work. We were giving the example that people think that as long as they have all the right factors in order, they can accomplish their goals. Big people like Napoleon and Hitler were both attacking Russia, and they had a better army, and they had better equipment. So they had, the senses were right, they had the best field of action, they had the best senses, they had the best engagement, they had all the 4 factors of action in place. But what is the problem? Someone read that in the chapter, The Nature, Enjoyer, and Consciousness. How many factors of action are there? There's the place, there's the senses, there's the endeavor, and there's the doer. And as long as you have all those 4 in order, you're bound to succeed, correct? Because there's 4 factors of action. Is that it? How many factors are there? 4? Anybody? Yes? There's 5. So it's the one they didn't know about that gets them. I was waiting to see if someone came up with that. The 5th factor is Krishna. Just like when Hitler was going to attack Moscow, he was 36 miles away from the capital. He had a gun that would blow up a whole block that would only go 30 miles. It was November 7th. The winter wasn't coming for a month and a half. He had the best plan and the best equipment. But Krishna said, let's have winter a month and a half early. Is that possible? If it happened, that proves it's possible, right? Anytime something happens, that's proof that it's possible. So Krishna being the 5th factor, he can make all the little things that you have. Let's start with the other side. You may think you're a big, powerful ruler. All the circumstances, the 4 factors, the endeavor, the place of action, the senses, are all in your order. But Krishna being the 5th factor, and the most important, can adjust that and change it all. The proof that he can do that is that he does it. Conversely, we can be somewhere where we're totally unqualified. I had that experience when I was in South Africa. You see, if you see on Facebook, and my Facebook shows a picture of me in South Africa, and I'm 19, but I look about 13. When I'd knock on doors, people would say, some child is here to tell us he wants to open a temple here. And they'd say, are your parents coming to get you? So when I was left alone, I was not qualified. Krishna says that he preserves what we have and carries what we lack. And maybe Krishna has to carry a lot more in my case of all the things I lack, but that's not a big deal for him. You know, they showed the picture of the Greeks have the idea Atlas. Atlas was holding this world on his back like it was a big burden. But Krishna pervades and supports all of these planets. How many planets are there? More than you can count. But he does all of that with just a fragment of his energy. So it's not the same conception. He's not there holding the earth on his back like it's going to break his back. So it's not a big deal for Krishna. So when I was there alone, the government was against me. There was trouble between whites and blacks, and even though I was trying to mix all races together, I could be in trouble just for being white. I could have been in trouble for living in a non-white area. But Prabhupada said he was praying to Krishna that I would have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. So now we have temples all over the country, and people from all races get to come, something that was illegal when I was there. But Krishna can make it prevail, something that seems impossible. And he can make something that seems possible just fall apart right in front of you. So the idea is that what we need to do is follow Krishna's direction. As he said in the verse before today's verse, not hearing me, that we're lost. So we should try to hear Krishna on a daily basis. Remember the instructions that he's given. Read more verses. Understands the purport that Prabhupada is given. As it says here, one should neglect the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is that it? It does say that, doesn't it? What word did I skip? No. It says, that doesn't say one should, it says no one should neglect. I said, just to keep your mind, what happens if you neglect the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Spiritual Master? You're lost, you got it. In the last verses, not hearing me, you're lost. So we should not neglect those, since they know where we're going. We should, and to follow the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Spiritual Master, what do we need to know? What is it? Yes, we need to know what they are to follow them, right? We can't just speculate on what they are. The one person was saying, well, why would it read from the scripture? You should allow the free thinking. I said, well, an architect may have free thinking in building a building, but if he doesn't understand the basic principles of architecture, the whole thing won't work out. So to understand Krishna's basic instructions actually gives us a chance for more free thinking, because we have a proper framework to work in. That's why they find, the person, Nrsinga Kavacha is the GBC for deity worship. And which people is it easier to train to do deity worship, Westerners or Indians?
I don't know.
Indians is more difficult.
Why?
Because they have their vision how it should be. And
Yeah.
It's not necessary, right?
Well, it should be Indians. That's why. Which one has an Indian head pujari, in Vrindavan or in Mayapur?
None.
Neither.
None.
Now, of course, many Indians can get it, but some of them have been given speculative ideas. If I'm going to play cricket, do I just get out and speculate what the sport is? Like I throw the ball through a hoop? I get the big ball and I throw it through the hoop?
That's not cricket.
That's not cricket.
That's football.
I don't know much about cricket, but I know that's not it. Here's what I know about cricket. It's a sport. There's 11 players. They have a bat that looks more like a paddle to spank people with. And then they have wickets, which I'm not sure what it looks like. And Sachin Tendulkar was the best player. Sachin Tendulkar. So this was my lecture on cricket. That's as far as I can go. So if we get out on the cricket field and we speculate, will our team members be happy with us? No. Will we be on the team tomorrow? No. So we have to find out if these people are going to do well in the sport. First, they have to know what the sport is, don't they? If we get out there and speculate. So we find that even if you're born in India, does that automatically mean you're an expert cricket player?
No.
You actually have to be trained, right? You can't just say, I was born in India, put me on the team. It doesn't work. So the same way, if we're going to learn pujari service or other things, we need to understand what the system is. Not just, I heard that somebody said this. You try to fix a car that way. Well, somebody told me that you connect these things here. No, you have to have a book on how to fix a car and learn from somebody who's actually fixed it. So with Krishna's directions here, we should spend the time to study them, either in classes and to read them in books. There's many vast instructions in the Vedas, but Krishna has explained so much in 701 verses, which aren't even all his verses, that help us to understand how to add up what's matter and what's spirit. The directions help us to understand what is bhakti and what is not bhakti. They help us to understand how these modes of nature are working and how we can get out of these modes of nature. And as Krishna is making it clear here, we may have a very difficult situation in the modes of nature. But if we surrender to Krishna and take his direction, even if we're having great difficulty, Krishna says that if somebody is not against the principle of surrender, it will come about. Now, of course, if we can take people and raise them as brahmacharis, and they never drank alcohol and never did so many things, the spiritual life may be easier. But let's say you take two people. One person was accustomed to drinking alcohol very badly, but he takes to Krishna consciousness, follows the direction. Someone else says, well, I'm not so bad, I can do this once in a while. Which person will do better? That's why one person may actually have a worse situation, but if he follows Krishna's directions, he can get free from these modes of nature. That's the whole point, is because it's dependent on Krishna. We don't need to add up that because I am more involved in the modes of nature than you, therefore there's less of a chance for me. Or you think because you're less involved in the modes of nature, you don't have to surrender to Krishna. You can do this all on your own. Now, which one of those two is incorrect thinking? Both of them are. Because if it's up to Krishna, if we follow Krishna's directions, even if we're totally contaminated by these modes of nature, we can get out of these modes of nature. And if we think we're not so entangled, but we don't try to get out of them, then we won't. So what we need to remember is the important part is not how good we are, how bad we are. This still goes back to false ego. The important point is to how we can follow Krishna's directions and serve Krishna in love. It's under illusion that he's declining to act. So, certain people can become glorious by following Krishna's directions. Would that be just the average people? Would that be the people who are already saintly? Or would it be the people who are really contaminated by the modes of nature?
All three.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's what it says here. Any one of them can become glorious. So the point is not to add up where we are, but to think how we can surrender to Krishna. Whether we are an extremely elevated Brahmin, whether we are just an average person, or whether we are someone with great defects and problems and contaminations and attachments in the modes of nature. If we follow Krishna's direction, we will get there. Just like someone may think he knows Vrindavan, but he may not know a particular street. And if someone comes along that knows nothing, but he follows the proper direction, he will get there first. So we should remember this, vyavasayatmaka, determination. And we discussed determination before. Now, what does determination come from? It actually means a couple of things. Can someone give an idea about determination? It's conviction. See, it's like in a court. What happens in a court? They convict somebody. So conviction means that you don't just, it's not like, yes, I'm really encouraged to do that. It means that you've made a decision. A conviction is like a real strong decision. Like if the judge makes a decision to go to Govinda's restaurant, that's not like a conviction, right? But if the judge makes a conviction that you are convicted to prison for 10 years, then what happens? You go to prison for 10 years. That's why conviction is not like, it's not like a slight choice. It's a determined choice. That you have determined that this is what is going to happen. Determination means that you have determined that this is where you're going to go. You've added it up and you've made a conviction that this is what I'm going to do. We find this in any field. If one has the determination and makes a conviction, just like when that judge convicts someone of a sentence of prison, what will they do? They will do the sentence. Yes? So this is what we have to remember on a daily basis. The chanting helps us to make the conviction, and the conviction helps us to do the chanting. But we have to remember on a daily basis, even a minute-to-minute basis, that I am trying to determine where I'm going, what directions of Krishna I need to take to get there, and have a conviction that this is what I'm going to do. Because if you're not sure where you're going, and you're not sure how to get there, you won't get there. So we need to follow these directions of Krishna. We understand it that we must be in line with Krishna. Sometimes here you see a car or auto rickshaw, the wheels are not lined up properly, so it keeps trying to pull over to the right, and it's trying to keep going, and they have difficulty. So you have to align it so it goes in the straight direction. Prabhupada uses the analogy of a dovetail, because the dove's tail connects to the dove just like this. So if our thinking, feeling, willing actions are connected to Krishna's desires, instead of some to Krishna, some to somewhere else, that may take some work. We may not start as a pure devotee. It may take some work. But we know what we need to be doing is determining. We take Krishna's directions and we determine what things to do that will give us the conviction. And if we don't have the conviction, we make a conviction to have the conviction. We find that in controlling the senses, they're compared to like the horses. If you take the wild horses, they want to run. But if you put them on the rein, the horses are the senses, the reins are the mind, and the driver is the intelligence. And if you keep pulling them back under the control of the self, finally they get used to that. So it's a process. If we did poorly yesterday, we practice the process today. If we did very well yesterday, we also practice the process. But it shows us that we need to keep studying to see what is Krishna's will for us, and to understand some of these basic instructions, to understand that Krishna was telling Arjuna that if you don't follow my directions, you'll still have to fight, but for us it may be something else we do. But we can remember, we should not be encouraged with ourselves and thinking how great we're doing. But we should not think that these modes of nature are too much. They may be too much for us, but there are two things that are more powerful than these modes of nature. What are they?
Harinam and Sadhusanga.
Well, there's many things involved in that, where there's Harinama, Sadhusangas, studying the scriptures, but basically down to two things. Because what do all those things involve doing? What is Harinama Sadhusangas?
Surrender.
Well, what is our society called?
International Society for Krishna
Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is more powerful, and you know what else is? The choice or the conviction. If we make the choice or the conviction, Maya cannot force us. Maya is just giving us suggestions. And Krishna is giving us suggestions. And we have the choice. Krishna doesn't say you better do this or I'm going to hit you with a lightning bolt. He gives you suggestions and shows you what happens when you don't do them. So we have to remind ourselves on a regular basis that to firm up that conviction. Our conviction may not be as strong as the judge is saying, you are convicted to 10 years in prison. He can't just say, my mind is convicted to 10 years of thinking of Krishna and nothing else, and then nothing else comes in. But you can say, my mind is convicted to the process that will direct me to Krishna, and I will keep convicting it, making that choice. And so we have a regular program of things we do. We don't just wake up and go do something. We have a particular time we go to a temple, particular number of rounds that we chant. And as it says here, we keep in mind that our life's goal is to follow the directions that Krishna is giving us. So any questions or comments about this? Yes. Can you hand him the microphone?
Right. So we should be totally convinced that whatever Krishna is telling us, so we have to follow him, and whatever Maya is telling us, we shouldn't follow him.
It's a process. Anartha Nivriti means that we're 60 or 70% detached from material things. So at least by our actions, we go to the temple in the morning, we don't stay out at a bar late at night, we do our chanting, we don't engage in nonsense talk, and we do the things that take us there. And at least if we're more surrendered to Krishna, and more dependent on Krishna than any of the other people, places, and things, we will be able to grow nicely. So the idea is to be more than 50% surrendered to Krishna and try to increase it on a regular basis.
We are supposed to attend Mangal Aarti. The Prabhupada said we have to attend Mangal Aarti.
Yes?
So when we come for Mangal Aarti, we take darshan and we just leave and keeping on doing parikrama. So what do you suggest for that one?
We mean they do parikram during Mangal Arti or
Yes,
after?
sir. Mangal
During
Aarti
it.
is going on and okay, never mind, I take darshan, now I have to take parikrama.
Huh.
So whether I am doing that whimsically or Krishna is telling me, no, okay, you do parikrama.
Was that when the temple is crowded?
Whether crowded or not crowded, my job
Yeah.
is to take darshan in the morning.
Yes.
Instead of taking darshan whimsically, I do the things that what whimsically I am doing, that is correct, or we have to take darshan of Krishna.
Well, it seems like the Mangal Arti only goes on less than 30 minutes. It seems like you can walk around and do the parikrama 2, 3, 4 hours more afterwards, can't you? You could wait till Mangal Arti's over and then do the parikrama until 7:15. So now you got a couple hours. And then after that, you could do more. Then when class is over, you could go from 9:30 to 1. You could do. So it seems like there's many other times you could get in 6, 8 hours of parikrama and still get in plenty of sleep and still come to Mangal Artik in class. So it seems like the Mangal Artik is more of a priority because it only goes on for 30 minutes. Correct? Maybe less. And then you could go do it now. You can even stay up late and go around the building. You can go around the building and still attend Mangal Artik and go around the building 100 times in a day. So it definitely seems like it would be a better use. I'm not going to go hit someone with a stick that's awake and chanting, but it seems like it is a better priority to attend the Mangal Artik and then do the parikrama around.
Our concentration should be that on Mangal Aarti. Our concentration. We should totally concentrate on Mangalarti.
Well, that's what we're there for, isn't it?
So,
Yeah, that's why when I love to talk later on and socialize with people. I love that, but not when I'm at Mangalartik and not when I'm doing my rounds. You know, there's a time for each thing. Later, when I've been to Mangalartik and been to class and I've done reading, and then I go meet my godbrothers and other devotees at 9 o'clock for prasadam, or at 3 o'clock for prasadam, or later on we're sitting around chatting after that, then it's a great time to socialize and talk about different things. But I find it kind of disturbing when people are talking about things in the Mangalartik. It's only a short period of time in the best part of the day, whereas there's plenty of time we can socialize, right? We can socialize at prasadam, after prasadam, just before this time, right? Right after this class, before this class. So it seems like the priority, the spiritual priority, those things should be done first, and the other things later. I'm not going to punish someone or give them demerits, but it seems like when something is going on, especially at Mangalartik, it's only done at that time of day, and then it's over. You missed it. But as far as doing parikrama around the building, there's plenty of time to do that, isn't there? Let's say I dare anybody to find all their spare time. If you, let's say you sleep many hours, you eat prasadam, you chant your rounds, you go to Mangalartik in class, and the rest of it, you do parikrama around the building. I bet you couldn't do it. Because we're still talking another 6, 8, 10 hours, aren't we? So I bet if you devoted all the extra time to it, you still wouldn't be able to keep going. So it seems like that should be the priority. Why, do you tell people to come in or what? It does look a little funny when Mangalarti is going on and people are...
I understand the instruction given by Prabhupada that we should attend this program morning early, Mangalarti,
Yeah.
Guru Puja, Bhagavatam class, Bhagavad-Gita class. So whatever he is recommending, if you follow that one, means you are following the Acharya. And if you don't do this one, then you are not following Acharya, whimsically we are doing this.
Well, yeah, it seems like it's one thing if you're in another city, or you couldn't wake up because you were sick, or you went on parikrama, but if you're right outside the building, all you have to do is come inside. It does seem to make sense to, you know, if you were in Faridabad, you might say, I couldn't make it, but I don't know how hard you want to institute it. You may make it as a suggestion that while Mangalartik is going on, it only lasts for 20-something minutes. It would be a better use of your time to attend Mangalartik and then do parikrama around the temple later. That's for sure. I don't know whether to make it that you're deviating and doing all that, but I can definitely say it's a better use of your time to do that. Correct? Any other question or comment?
Yeah, big man.
Yes? Yes?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes.
thank you for your nice lecture.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to know a key process whereby one can get more peace connected to the process and develop more enthusiasm in devotion.
Well, we do the things we're talking about. We go to Mangalartik, then when that's over, we chant carefully on our rounds, concentrating on them. Basically worshiping the deities, chanting in kirtan and on beads, residing either in a holy place or living near a temple, and associating with devotees, reading the Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Those processes. We read the Gita, it become clear. And we have it set up here, chanting on beads, kirtan and Mangalartik. We just keep following the process. Yes?
Lord Krishna was with Arjuna all the time, so he knew what God wants and he could give directions. Now Lord is not with us. How do we know what Lord wants us to do?
Because so much is here in the Gita about what to do. So much is there about like how to talk, how to act. I mean, what's that? Yes, but so much as in the Gita tells us things like how to speak, like the austerities of speech. We study this. We have to confirm it from outside. We have to understand. We can't just think Krishna is directing me to do this, Krishna is directing me to do that. We have to understand Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. So the same directions given to Arjuna are here for us now. Basically, if we start with the main things, what we should do. Like we know I should chant 16 rounds, and we know I shouldn't eat meat and take intoxication, have illicit sex. And then the middle things will adjust themselves.
There's a situation where not everything is given. I mean, there's conditions under which we may come across, and how do we get directions from the Lord if it's not given?
We have to try to add it up and see what's the most service and what's the most feasible. The main thing is we have to see how we're pleasing Krishna. And we also have to consider the persons that we're involved with, you know. It was like when Prabhupada's bathroom shack in Mayapur was on fire, and the one devotee, I have my laundry in a basket, in the bucket, he says, Prabhupada's house is on fire, and he pushes me in the dirt and throws my laundry on the ground and then takes the bucket over there. Now he could have just said, look, I need your bucket because this is on fire. He didn't need to push me into the dirt and throw my laundry there too. I could have taken it out of the... So, we have to consider the people in our world too. But basically, it's obvious what Krishna is explaining to us. We have to improve our consciousness, we offer things to Krishna, and we try to help other people. Those things are obvious. And we have to see what opportunities are there and see how they work into that parameter. We see, like when Krishna sends people from other countries, we should go and talk to them so they don't feel like foreigners. See, in America, you know, an American could be somebody of Indian descent or Chinese descent or American, but here sometimes people are, oh, those are foreigners, you know. But some of the foreigners are Indian-bodied people, aren't they? They come from South Africa and England and Australia. Those are all foreigners, aren't they? They're not Indians, isn't it? How about Jayapataka Swami? Is he a foreigner or an Indian? What? No, he's an Indian. Someone who comes from South Africa whose last name is Patel, are they a foreigner or an Indian? They're a foreigner. They're a foreigner. It's talking what kind of passport you hold. Now, if an Indian descent, that's different. No, but that doesn't matter. An Indian is a citizen. Are you an Indian or not Indian? It matters what passport you hold. So someone from South Africa would be a South African, and Jayapataka Swami would be an Indian. So they get too stuck on this idea of foreigners and... Oh, aren't the Bengalis foreigners then, because they're from a different state? Yes. Yes.
But actually, it cannot be a Brajbasi.
What?
Brajbasi.
Yes.
It cannot be a Brajbasi.
No, we're not talking, that's a different point. We're talking about foreigners.
Yeah.
We still shouldn't consider people foreigners. They come from another place, or they're Westerners, or it's too hard to say foreign. All right, we'll end there. Hare Krishna.